name is Ogie, and I was one of the managers at a prestigious multinational company in Port Harcourt. My position was envied by many, and my salary was excellent. With that kind of income, I had properties, businesses in choice areas. I was living a life of luxury, enjoying everything money could buy. But somewhere along the way, things started to fall apart. It began slowly, so slowly that I didn't notice it at first. Money started slipping through my fingers like water. It felt as if a hole had opened in my wallet, or as if an invisible hand was stealing and spending my money. No matter how much I earned, it never seemed to be enough. My companies were in crisis with the locals. My savings dwindled, and my bank account became more and more pitiful each passing month. I started borrowing just to make ends meet, which was as humiliating as it was confusing. During this period, my cars started having problems that required large sums of money to fix. I found myself relying on Uber to get around, even to send my children to school. My children's school fees became an insurmountable burden, and I was forced to plead with the school to be patient with me, promising to pay at the end of the month. But when the end of the month came, I would have to borrow to pay. It was a vicious cycle that I couldn't break. My wife, Amara, found out about our financial problems when I brought a property appraiser to the house to evaluate it. We needed money to pay off the piling bills. She tried to be supportive, but I could see the worry etched on her face, the fear of losing our home. How could I, a man who was supposed to provide for his family, have fallen so low? Our home, once filled with laughter, had become a place of tension and silence. Amara's concern turned into frustration and eventually desperation. One day, Amara came to me with a suggestion. She told me about a prophet she had heard of, a man known for helping people with spiritual problems. At first, I was skeptical. How could a prophet help with financial issues? I queried. But Amara was persistent. She believed there was more to her situation than we realized and was determined to find out what it was. She insisted we needed to know the root cause of our financial dryness and constant borrowing. I disagreed with her decision to visit the prophet, but she went anyway. When she returned, she was visibly shaking. The prophet had told her that our problems weren't just financial, they were spiritual. According to him, the root of our problems lay within my family. He spoke in parables, saying, the hen that hatched the egg is responsible for what the grown up chick is going through. It was a cryptic message that didn't make any sense to me at the time. When Amara told me what the prophet had said, I was furious. How could she suggest that my own family, the people I loved and trusted, were responsible for my suffering? My mother, in particular, had been a pillar of strength in my life. She had single handedly raised me, even selling her precious wrapper to send me to school. The thought that she could be involved in anything that would harm me was beyond belief. I refused to entertain the idea. I told Amara that the prophet was wrong and didn't know what he was talking about. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. I tried to ignore it, to push it to the back of my mind, but it grew stronger each passing day. Then something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was a regular day at the office when Mr. Nasiru, the gate man, came to see me. He stood in front of me, hesitating as if struggling to speak. Finally, he said, Oga, I have something to discuss with you. I'm very worried about you. You used to be joyful, but now you look sad. Even the staff are talking about the sudden change. You no longer come to the office with your car. You now rely on Uber. I've been praying for you, sir. I believe that if there is a man to pray, there is a God in heaven to answer. Please pray, sir. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had always seen myself as a rational man who believed in logic and reason. But here was my gate man, someone I had always considered beneath me, telling me to pray. Could prayer change this situation? That evening, I couldn't eat nor sleep. I kept replaying Nasiru's words in my mind. Does prayer truly work? The next day, I called Nasiru into my office. I needed to know more. When he arrived, I asked him directly, do you think prayer can solve financial problems? I thought prayer was for spiritual things. Can it fix money issues? Nasiru nodded and said, money is spiritual, sir, though it may have a physical form. If it's being tampered with spiritually, it will show in the physical. Suddenly, it all clicked. Someone was manipulating my finances spiritually. I needed to find out who. Nasiru hesitated before replying. If you want to know, sir, you will need to do something first. You will need to buy a new cutlass. Every night for the next 7 days, pray over the cutlass. Say that whatever you cut in the physical will be cut in the spiritual as well. Also say, every invincible hand stealing and spending my money, I cut you off. And when you receive your next salary, don't spend it. Gather it, take it to your room, and pray over it. Then use the cutlass to cut the money. It sounded like madness, but I was desperate. I decided to follow Nasiru's instructions, even though I didn't believe it would work. I bought the cutlass, and every night for 7 days, I prayed over it. When my salary came, I didn't spend a single kobo. I took the money to my room, laid it out on the floor, and prayed. Then, with trembling hands, I used the cutlass to cut the money into pieces. Nothing happened immediately, but the next morning, I received a phone call from the village. My mother had been in an accident. No one knew how it had happened. When I arrived at the village, I found my mother in a terrible state. She looked as though she had been attacked with a cutlass, her body covered in cuts and bruises. The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. My prayers had worked, and the money I had cut had somehow affected my mother. So Nasiru was right. Indeed, money is spiritual. I was devastated. My mother, the woman who has sacrificed so much for me, had been the cause of my financial ruin. I confronted her, tears streaming down my face. Mama, why? I asked. Why would you do this to me? Through her pain, my mother confessed. She had been involved in a witchcraft coven, and they demanded that she bring them my money every month. The money I gave her for her upkeep was what she used as a point of contact to my finances. She had done it out of fear, not realizing it would lead to my downfall. After her confession, she passed away, leaving me to grapple with the loss and betrayal. The weight of the truth was almost too much to bear. My mother, whom I had loved and respected, had caused my suffering. My world crumbled. But in the midst of my despair, I knew I had to seek help. I followed my wife back to the prophet. I was a broken man in need of recovery and restoration. The prophet prayed for me, and in the months that followed, things began to change. The witchcraft spell controlling my finances was broken. I no longer lived in debt, and I was able to fix my car and regain my peace. This experience taught me a harsh lesson. Money is spiritual, witchcraft is real, but the power of God is even more real. If there is a man to pray, there is a God to answer. Through pain and loss, I learned the importance of faith and the power of prayer.
Thanks for watching. Support my channel by subscribing, liking, sharing, and turning on notifications to stay updated on new stories.